Welcome to TSX Quarterly, the podcast that brings you publicly available earnings calls from companies listed on the Toronto Stock Exchange in one convenient location. Gone are the days of looking through confusing websites. You'll find the important information right here. Enjoy the call.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for standing by. Welcome to the Quebecor Inc.'s financial results for the fourth quarter and full year 2021 conference call. I would like to introduce Hugues Simard, Chief Financial Officer of Quebecor Inc. Please go ahead.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to this Quebecor conference call. My name is Hugues Simard, I'm the CFO, and joining me to discuss our financial and operating results for the fourth quarter and full year of 2021 is Pierre-Karl Péladeau, our President and CEO. Anyone unable to attend the conference call will be able to listen to a recording by telephone or webcast. Access details, as usual, are available on our website at www.quebecor.com, and the recording will be available until May the 24th. I also want to inform you, as we always do, that certain statements made on the call today may be considered forward-looking, and we would refer you to the risk factors outlined in today's press release and reports filed by the corporations with regulatory authorities. Let me now turn the floor to Pierre-Karl.
Merci, Hugues, and good morning, everyone. First off, we're pleased to have completed last December the acquisition of 294 blocks of 5G 3,500 megahertz spectrum, with half of our investment in Ontario, Manitoba, Alberta, and British Columbia. As we have said before, this spectrum constitutes the base of a potential expansion of our telecom services across Canada, should, of course, the still pending MVNO regulatory framework for wholesale mobile wireless services establish favorable conditions, ensuring the economic viabilities of MVNOs. We are also still eagerly awaiting the Competition Bureau ruling on the Roger Shaw transaction, another opportunity to create real, lasting competitive dynamic, bringing to Canadians the benefits of technological innovation, superior client experience, and lower prices, as we have done here in Quebec for more than 10 years. Speaking of the competitive telecom environment in Quebec, our financial results for the last quarter and the year 2021 reflect these comparatively more intense promotional dynamics, both in wireless and broadband, despite which we managed to generate increases of 5.5% in revenues, 1.1% in EBITDA, and 5.3% in cash flows from operation for the year, with an increase of 25 million or 7.4% in cash flows in the fourth quarter alone. In light of these results and following our plan to gradually increase dividends to represent 30 to 50% of our net free cash flows, I'm happy to report that Quebecor's Board of Directors declared yesterday a quarterly dividend of 30 cents per share on both Class A and Class B shares, up from 27.5 cents, a 9% increase. Turning to operational matters and starting with telecom, Videotron actively pursued its 5G deployment in the Greater Montreal and Quebec City areas, providing increased speed, expanded connectivity, minimal latency, and opening of a world of opportunities for our customers. Moreover, the first phase of Operation High-Speed, our project to deliver high-speed internet to 37,000 households in several municipalities across the province, is proceeding well. In December, we connected our first homes in the northwest suburbs of Montreal, and the residents' response has been very enthusiastic so far pointing to a successful program for which I wish to salute not only our team, but also our partners, Quebec government and Canada government, for this important initiative. Our Elix activations reach 157,000 for the fourth quarter, representing our best performance of the year and the sixth consecutive quarter with more than 100,000 customers additions to our Elix services. Subscribers to our superior Elix service total over 1.2 million as December 31st, 2021. In a market characterized by ongoing cord shaving and cutting, Videotron stands out with its ability to limit the impact on its video customer base due to its state-of-the-art platform and second-to-none client experience. Internet subscriber growth was 8,000 during the quarter and 44,000 year over year, a performance that compares favorably to that of our large Canadian peers and competitors. Internet ARPU increased $1.33 or 2.5% over the last year. During the quarter, we launched many great features in the Elix ecosystem. Subscribers can now access Amazon Prime Video directly on Elix TV, control high-voltage thermostat by Sinopé, a Quebec-owned company, and control smart door locks by August directly with the Elix 5 app. On the wireless front, we posted 31,000 ads during the quarter. Despite the ongoing aggressive competition from a loading and renewal perspective, we were able to improve our churn levels slightly for the quarter and captured, once again, the largest combined shares of gross ads in Quebec with more than 32% for our two brands, Videotron and Fizz, according to the new ads quarterly tracking by Léger. This number one position, which had been solidly established for several quarters, clearly demonstrated the strength and complementary of our brands and certainly confirms Videotron as the leader in wireless services in Quebec. In addition, I am proud to highlight that Fizz tops Léger 2021 WOW Digital Index, offering the best online experience in telecommunication for the third consecutive year. Consolidated wireless ARPU for the quarter improved to 28 cents or 0.7% over the same quarter last year. This increase is explained in large part by roaming and data usage revenues, comparing favorably to the same quarter last year. With over 460,000 subscribers across Quebec, Club Illico continued to invest in the production of local, differentiated content from various horizons with the introduction of a brand new content offer. In the fourth quarter, Club Illico, in collaboration with Quebecor Content, launched 3 new original films in addition to new seasons of popular series such as La Faille, Patrick Sénécal Présente, and Les Honorables. Vrai, our new video subscription platform dedicated to exclusive, unscripted lifestyle, documentary, and entertainment content, introduced more than 35 new original productions, in addition to acquiring some of the best international brands for non-scripted content in French. Growing to more than 42,000 subscribers in less than 5 months, Vrai is a huge success and a perfect complement to Club Illico, which is dedicated to series, movies, and youth programs. Vrai is also available on Quebecor's integrated digital news and entertainment content platform, as an added value to the Videotron customers who do not subscribe to Elix. In our media segment, advertising revenues continue to increase, particularly in broadcasting, up 25% in the quarter and 30% over the year. We continue to invest in a wealth of new shows, original production, and exclusive content in the fourth quarter to maintain our leadership position in the face of increased competition from offering on multiple platforms. Thanks to our high-caliber original production and major television events, TVA consolidated market share reached 38.8%, reflecting in part of a 0.5% increase for the TVE channel. In a very competitive, competitive environment from private competitors and our state broadcasters, Radio-Canada. MELS, our production and audiovisual services company, also performed very well, growing its revenues by 47% to 86 million and its EBITDA to 23 million for year 2021, its best performance ever. Finally, on the regulatory front, I would like to voice my concern, once again, about the unsustainability high burden placed on Canadian broadcasting companies. As video streaming subscriptions have now surpassed television distribution services, Canadian companies are operating in an increasingly precarious environment. A situation would lead to the weakening of the television industry and of local production. News, a vital pillar of a strong and healthy democracy, will suffer unless the CRTC lightens that burden. It is high time that we too enjoy the same regulatory and commercial freedom as the foreign web giants, which have been eating our lunch free of charge. I will now let you review our financial results.
Merci, Pierre-Carl. For the fourth quarter, Quebecor's revenues were up 3% to 1.2 billion. Revenues from our telecom segment grew 1% to 953 million dollars, mainly explained by the wireless segment, combining customer growth and higher revenues from mobile devices. Revenues from our media segment grew 14% to 212 million dollars. Quebecor's EBITDA was down 5% to 499 million for the quarter. Our telecom segment recorded an EBITDA of 467 million, a 3% decrease compared to the same quarter last year, as a result of some provision reversals, which impacted us favorably last year, and also lower margin in wireline and also on mobile devices sales, which also accounted on the top line. Our media segment recorded an EBITDA of 29 million dollars, which was 17 million unfavorably to last year, mostly due to higher broadcast content costs, in part because of the late start of the NHL's 2020 and 2021 season. Quebecor reported a net income attributable to shareholders of 161 million dollars in the quarter, or 67 dollars per share, compared to a net income of 160 million dollar, or 64 cents per share, reported in the same quarter last year. Adjusted income from continuing operations, excluding as usual unusual items and gains or losses on valuation of financial instruments, came in at 158 million dollars, or 66 cents per share, compared to an adjusted income of 165 million, or 66 dollars per share in the same quarter last year. For the full year, Quebecor's revenues were up 5% to 4.6 billion dollars, and EBITDA was up 1% to almost 2 billion dollars. Revenues from our telecom segment grew 3% to 3.7 billion, and EBITDA increased 1% to 1.9 billion for the same period, with an overall EBITDA margin of 50.2%. Telecom CapEx spending, excluding spectrum, was down 56 million dollars for the quarter as compared to the previous year, mainly due to timing of investments, where we refocus on our strategic priorities, tighten our processes, and operate more efficiently. For the full year, telecom CapEx spending decreased 59 million dollars as compared to last year, while increasing investments in our LTE Advanced and 5G rollout. Our cash flow from operations for the year 2021 increased by $70 million, or 5%, to $1.4 billion, once again demonstrating the resilience and strength of our business model, as well as a continued operational and financial discipline. Cash flow from operations for a telecom segment also grew $70 million, or 6%, to $1.3 billion. As of the end of the quarter, our net debt to EBITDA ratio was 3.19 times, up from 2.68 times reported at the end of last year, mainly explained by the acquisition of the 3500 megahertz spectrum. Available liquidity of $1.6 billion as of the end of the year and our growing cash flows will continue to be more than sufficient to fulfill our commitments and continue to fuel our projects for growth. In 2021, we purchased and canceled 8.9 million Class B shares for a total investment of $282 million. Since we initiated our NCIB 11 years ago, approximately 49.6 million Class B shares have been purchased and canceled. We thank you for your attention and will now open the lines for your questions.
Right. First question comes from Jérôme Dubreuil from Desjardins.
And thanks for...
Yeah, go ahead.
Oui, bonjour, tout le monde. Thanks for taking my question. We've seen this morning the dividend being increased 9%. There were significant buybacks in the quarter as well. Nothing too dissimilar to trends we have been seeing before, but still I have to ask if we should read anything in terms of a signal regarding your willingness to expand outside of Quebec. Has this changed at all since our last call in November?
Yes, bonjour, Jérôme. Well, I guess that, we were quite clear regarding what we were considering a more normal situation in terms of payout. This had been mentioned, a few quarters ago. We do not expect, changing our policy. So basically, this is why, we've been, the board of directors decided that, we should continue to increase. Probably, the increase is a little bit lower than some of you would expect it. But, it's in line with the policy that we established previously. For the out of Quebec or rest of Canada, this depends, how you want to call it, expansion. Again, I would like to refer, to my introduction in my speech, basically saying that, we're expecting, to know at this stage. Unfortunately, we're clearly, in the dark. But we expect, the CRTC to come with the proper framework to make sure that it will make sense with, I guess, the overall policy, to improve competition in Canada. There's no doubt that the proof had been made in Quebec for the last few years. Well, it's more than a few years now. It's been a while now. So we should think, to me, that, it's loud and clear that the fourth competitor would be, the best vehicle to make sure that Canadians will enjoy a more competitive landscape.
Okay, thanks. That's pretty clear. And then a second one, if I may, I was recently looking at public pricing on the websites, and it appears that the gap between the pricing of Videotron and that of others has somewhat closed recently. Wondering if that means you are starting to get more comfortable with the current market share, and if we should expect the company to enter a new phase in terms of its wireless strategy.
Well, you know what, Jérôme, I guess that, we should say it's a very volatile environment. I got in front of me, excerpts from two newspapers, today's newspapers. One is from the Toronto Star, and the second one is from the Montreal Gazette. So in the Toronto Star, page A7, we have an ad from Bell, which is Pure 5, the faster than internet technology, starting from $84.95 per month. This is this morning in the Toronto Star. I look at the Montreal Gazette, and I got an ad from Bell, Quebec fastest ranked internet, starting from $59.95. So you can see, the difference is about what? $25. And just beside the Bell ad, we got a Virgin ad, which shows, unlimited internet for a sweet price of $39 per month. So it shows how, the ecosystem is competitive in Quebec, and how also, the sub-brands in the internet have been certainly having an effect overall, and probably also on the internet margins that we're able to deliver. So will this, competitive environment will remain? This, obviously, we don't know, but we will certainly continue to offer what we consider being the best customer service with the best product. This has been, the successful recipe for Videotron for the last over 15 years. And I guess that right now, there's not real reason to change our positioning and marketing strategy.
Merci, Pierre-Carl.
All right. Next question comes from Tim Casey from BMO. Please go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, a couple for me, please. Thanks. Hugh, could you talk a little bit about maybe just sort of walk us through the EBITDA performance in the fourth quarter? It was certainly below consensus, and you mentioned a couple items, but could you maybe walk us through, what led to that and what the outlook going forward is, particularly on the telecom line? And I was wondering, I know you don't give guidance, but could you provide some sort of color on what your expectations would be for CapEx, cash taxes, and cash interest in 2022? And then finally, for Pierre-Carl, the discussion of relative pricing, for wireline in a couple of markets, there's a number of products that are priced differently across the country. I'm just still struggling with what is the game plan for expansion outside of Quebec on the wireless side. And we've debated this since the deal was announced, but I'm just wondering, how is your thinking evolving there? Because, the market is clearly struggling with what the end game is for Quebecor. Thanks.
For too long, we've lived in a world of canceled and delayed. No more. Those plans you've been making, they're on. Thanks to OnGo, the #1 ranked at-home rapid COVID-19 test. So that vacation where you get to swim with the pigs, it's on. Your friend's wedding that was pushed back 4 times, it's on. The roar of the stadium, it's on too. OnGo, COVID-19 test results in minutes. OnGo is available at letsongo.com/radio and Amazon. This product has been authorized by the FDA during the public health emergency only, and only for the detection of proteins from SARS-CoV-2, not other viruses. The claim #1 ranked is supported by ECRI's usability evaluation conducted in December 2021.
Okay, Tim, I'll start with your first question on EBITDA. So the story of the quarter, basically, on EBITDA is a couple of things. Starting in margin, you will, I'm sure, have seen the wireline margin, both broadband and cable. And broadband, it's more of a matter of the margin, if you look at it in detail, of not really growing as much as we have grown accustomed on the broadband. And most of the main reason for that, and it's hitting us increasingly, it had been hitting us increasingly over the past few quarters, and I think it's coming out even more clearly in Q4, And the first reason for that is the increasing proportion of the growth in broadband being attributable to Fizz. Fizz, we talk at length of Fizz and our success in wireless, but Fizz is a huge success as well in broadband. Cal just mentioned to you all these prices. I mean, the market seems to be very, very different, obviously, in English Canada than it is in Quebec. But what we're living in Quebec is very clear. I mean, people are pricing down. And where we're seeing growth, where we're really successful, is with Fizz. I suspect that this is something that's going to continue. We don't see any. We certainly don't see any reason for this to suddenly turn around. And we see our growth being increasingly due to Fizz, as opposed at a lower price point, obviously, as opposed to Videotron. Then of course, the ARPU for the broadband ARPU for the quarter is mostly flat compared to growth that we had seen for a few quarters ago, and that was increasingly disappearing. Don't forget as well that we are comparing ourselves with a quarter in 2020 that was very how would I call it, stable. Much fewer disconnects. If you look at it, I mean, we are comparing ourselves with this year in terms of growth in broadband. We're comparing 44,000, right, for the year. We're comparing ourselves with last year with 69,000, but in 2019 it was 23,000. So let's not forget that 2020, both the year and the fourth quarter, were also a little bit unusual comparables, right? Turning to cable, cable is there's nothing new in cable TV. Cord cutting and cord shaving is clearly continuing, but I think you have to look at our performance. If you look at other cable cos in Canada, whether it's Quebecor or Shaw's performance, and if you look at the U.S. as well, cable cos, you'll see that that we're managing the situation comparatively well. But I think all of that to say that the first story, I think, or the first explanation in profitability for us in the quarter has to do with margin, wireline margin. Now, of course, in terms of OPEX, there's we have put in place many cost reduction initiatives, and they are ongoing. But I think we have to realize that we're in that what I would call sort of that in-between phase, where we've added, to be honest, for the past couple of years, we've added platforms, we've added networks, and we are transitioning, we are migrating a lot of our customers, a lot of our subscribers from one platform, whether it's Helix, whether it's, there are a number of initiatives on the go, and we're in that sort of in-between, Tim, that in-between phase, where we've added a lot of cost structure, and we haven't yet. Well, we've taken some out, of course, but not as much as we would have liked, and perhaps it's not going as quickly as we would have liked. We'll own up to that. But the fact is that we're not done yet, and we're still in the midst of that transition and that migration. That is, in terms of maintenance costs, in terms of support costs, in terms of licenses, in terms of people, is really costing us quite a bit. This is what I would really point out in terms of EBITDA story for the quarter. In terms of CapEx, I think you asked me about CapEx. CapEx, I think it's important. It's continuing to come down, continuing the same trend as the previous quarters. A couple of things. I mean, of course, that on equipment, that transition that I talked about, so certainly the Helix migration, you'll remember that, we moved from a more CapEx-intensive to a more OPEX-intensive model. So certainly some of that CapEx decrease is naturally just linked to equipment. Another big one is self-install, where we continue to increase our performance in self-install. and have been able to really lower our installation capex significantly, are increasing. And we're up to 63% of self-install. So that's we're very, very proud of that performance, and it's finally leading to the results that we had been expecting. I mean, there's still ways to go, of course, and on the digitalization of our client journey and all of that. I mean, we're still, as I said, quite a few initiatives still on the go, but the self-install is certainly a great success that's certainly helping on the CapEx side. More generally, though, I have to be, we've talked about this in the past, and I'll repeat it. More discipline in terms of number of projects, the scope of CapEx projects, and the prioritization. As I'm sure you know, companies like Videotron and other telecoms, we have a lot of growth-related, a lot of strategic projects that get underway, that get analyzed, that focus, the time of a lot of people and cost quite a bit. And I think we're gradually being a lot more disciplined about this, as I said, in terms of number of projects that are started, that are the scope of these projects, and a more efficient prioritization of these projects, leading to, us being able to focus more on the growth and the projects that are linked to growth or impact on margin that we hope to continue to over the year in 2020 to deliver. As I said, certainly I think our lower CapEx should not be in any way interpreted in the way that we're not focusing on these growth and margin-related projects. I mean, LTE Advanced and 5G, as I said in my speech, is certainly one of the big ones that we are maintaining and in many ways increasing. So I think that covers. I think in terms of guidance, in terms of CapEx, I think our guidance at this point would be more of a stability on the CapEx front. For all the reasons I've just mentioned, Tim, whether it's the equipment, whether it's our performance, whether it's our discipline, we believe we're in a situation to be, we're managing the situation better, and I think we can look at stable CapEx for 2022. I won't give you any more guidance on EBITDA, of course, other than I think you've asked about. There's nothing. I don't think there's any change that you should take in your model in terms of cash taxes and other cash flow related items. I think again, I'd point to stability on those fronts. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll continue. On top of for the last piece of your question, Tim. Well, first of all, I'd like you also to reemphasize what you said on the CapEx. I think it's worth to mention this discipline is certainly not to the detriment of our 5G deployment, our LTE Advanced also. So we will continue to make sure that our network, as and this was part of our strategy and industrial/marketing strategy for the last decades and more, that our product was one of the best, if not the best, in the marketplace. We intend to do the same in the wireless business. You know that we were looking to, because I think it's the best thing to do regarding the Canadian landscape. So we were expecting to build our network together with Rogers for whatever reason, which, as you know, we claim right now. Former leadership, I would say, decided that it's not the way to go. We expect that the new leadership will review this position because, again, we still think that it's the best way to go, but no matter what is the case, we will continue to make sure that our network will meet customers' expectation and technology requirement to serve them. On the out of Quebec or rest of Canada strategy, Tim, I should emphasize the fact that we got everything. First of all, this is why we participate. We participated in the auction a few months ago. So we have the base of our future development because we bought spectrum in the markets where we expect or we think that would be interesting growth to take place. Is it necessary to mention that we have all the other assets as an operating company? So all the expertise, all the billing systems, all what is needed to be a telecom wireless company is under a long time experience and success of a telecom operator. The missing piece is the regulatory framework. We look forward to get the price. Obviously, everything will depend on the price that we will need to pay for this transition from MVNO situation to a full facility operator. As you know, and this is different than the TPIA framework, we need to build our network. So I'm not saying that we have free lunch for the first year, but we have certainly a favorable environment if the price was to be right. And again, it will depend of how strong is the desire of the state regulatory bodies to make sure that Canadians will enjoy competition. But we only have a button to push if we look to move forward in the wireless business for certain other regions in Canada. And we look forward for the CRTC to try to hurry up this exercise, which is, as you can imagine, being slowed down by the incumbents that do not want to see competition.
Thank you.
All right. Next question comes from David McFadgen from Cormark Securities. Please go ahead.
Oh, hi. Yeah, a couple of questions, if I may. So just looking at the telecom business, you talked about margins being down on wireline, I guess, due to the success of Fizz Internet. But I was just trying to, as always, segregate between wireless and wireline. So it would appear to me that wireless is probably flat on a year-over-year. The wireless EBITDA is probably flat-ish on a year-over-year basis in the quarter. Is that a good way to look at it?
The wireless EBITDA, David, you're referring to? No, the wireless EBITDA is growing. We don't separate it, as you know, but no, that it's definitely grown.
It's definitely grown. Okay. Would the growth have been double digit year over year?
We're very close to double digit. We're in that range.
Okay.
On wireless EBITDA. Which leads, obviously, the math being the math, to what I said earlier, that pressure on wireline for all the reasons I talked about. But I think our performance is honestly, David, is more challenging in wireline than it has been for some months now. Whereas I think wireless, our growth is pretty good, and ARPU is, as you know, has grown a little bit this quarter, despite what the fact that same as my argument that went for broadband also goes for wireless, of course. That most of our growth, a good chunk of our growth in wireless comes from Fizz as opposed to Videotron at lower price points. So there's a natural erosion as we have lived through for many quarters on the ARPU, and now this quarter we're seeing a little bit of an increase in ARPU. I mean, ABPU is a bit of a different beast, as you know. In our case, with less of our growth coming from, equipment-related packages, so maybe I'll say it differently, more of our growth coming from from BYOD. Obviously, there's that impact on APU. But, we don't really think in our business that APU is the right way to look at it, because we love BYOD. Our margins are really, really good, and it keeps us out of that subsidy game, that, as you know, can be quite expensive. Although there still are quite a few subsidies in this quarter, as you saw it yourself. So we're not completely out of that game, but BYOD has certainly helped us.
Okay. Because when you look at the supplemental, it just discloses mobile ABPU. So
we're gonna. That's we were talking about this. I think we're gonna do like some of our competitors and go more towards the go back, I guess, to the ARPU discussion that we used to have in the past, which I personally feel is a bit more telling in our business.
Mm-hmm. So I know you don't like to provide guidance, but would the fourth quarter wireline results be sort of a new trend that we should expect into 2022 and beyond? Just with the margins being down a little bit?
Well, it's an ongoing, David. I'm not gonna, blow smoke up whatever part of you you'd like, but the market's not going to change overnight. It's a tough market. Pierre-Carl talked about this. This is a very competitive market. It's a lot of pressure on price in wireline. Well, in wireless, yes, but that had been ongoing for some time. That seems to be quite different from the market in the rest of Canada. But, we don't think we're going to be the last country in the world when you look at what's happened in the U.S. and in Europe and all the other countries. So, it's not unexpected. I think it's going to continue to be quite competitive. Our main competitor in broadband is continuing to be very aggressive. I would more point out towards a continuing environment. That being said, I pointed out to a lot of cost initiatives that we're still working on, and as I owned up, maybe we haven't delivered as quickly as we would have liked, but we will get out of that sort of in-between stage that I talked about earlier with Tim. And I think there still is quite a bit of runway on the on the margin and the EBITDA growth front.
Okay. So maybe a question for Pierre-Carl. I mean, can you give us an update? I don't know if you can, but can you give us an update on your discussions with the Competition Bureau regarding the Rogers Shaw transaction, and maybe, I don't know if you can, but if you could share with us sort of the outcome that they would like to see.
Well, David, not really, I would say. We are obviously, answering questions from the Competition Bureau. I guess, they're looking to have as much of the information as possible, and they certainly consider that, we would be a good stakeholder to quote-unquote educate them on, the market wherewithal. But it's certainly, tough to find out. We're not going to try to read in tea leaves. I don't know if I can say that. But I guess that, the landscape had been, quite clear that the fourth competitor is certainly something that shows competition bring some significant advantages to customers. Is this philosophy will remain also in terms of competition? There's always, few different perspectives, to for interpretation of the law. But we'll see. And I guess that the conditions are certainly, very strong for this part of the transaction significantly reviewed by the Bureau.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, David.
All right, and the last question we currently have in the queue comes from Drew McReynolds from RBC. Please go ahead.
Yeah,
please go ahead, Drew.
Yeah, thanks very much. Good morning. A couple of follow-ups here. In terms of fiber to the home expansion in your cable footprint, obviously Bell's done key chunks of urban markets over the years. Has there been any incremental impact of that expansion from a competitive standpoint? And then you just, with respect to provision reversals, we're kind of comping off some choppiness here as we kind of look out quarter by quarter. Should there be additional kind of provision reversals going forward? Just, provide an update there would be helpful.
Sure. I'll answer your second question first, Drew. You shouldn't get bogged down in provision reversal. Year ends are always, whether it's bonuses or readjustments after, as we're coming out of the pandemic for bad debt adjustments and things like that. But it really should not. I mean, that's not the story, and I'm not going to hide behind any of this. And there shouldn't be. I mean, there's nothing ahead of us that's holding ahead of our, on top of our head or anything like that. So I wouldn't put much focus on that. In terms of FTTH, Bell has continued very aggressively its FTTH deployment. But as we've said in the past many times, we believe we have the flexibility due to our technology to be able to go to the node as opposed to the home in many cases, and deliver very, not only very similar but comparable performance, as opposed to having to go all the way to the home because of coax. That being said, we do, in a lot of our extensions, we do go all the way to the home when it economically makes sense for us. And we have done so in many cases. So, I mean, there's some obviously higher costs, related to going FTTH, and Bell has certainly played very well that game over the past few years. But we believe we've been a little bit more. How would I say, not surgical, but a little bit, having the opportunity of being a little more, intelligent and economically prudent in our deployment, and that's been positive for us, while still continuing to deliver the same performance in these neighborhoods and in these nodes.
So our understanding, Drew, is that the FTTH footprint of Bell is basically cover all our footprint. So is there quote unquote a threat that we should expect on deployment of new technology? We don't see it. And as you says, FTTH deployment was very expensive. For Bell to do so, we do not know what is the impact of Bell in Quebec. As you know, there's no breakdown between Ontario and Quebec. So when we compare, we know that they're losing significant amount of customers regarding their satellite service, but we do not really know, where the small increase of fiber subscribers are located. From our standpoint, as also what the youth says, and this is a North American situation, cable subscription out of this phenomenon, which is whatever, is shaving or cutting or never, you know,
the court nevers are important.
Significant. We all know, you know, a young boy or a young lady, you know, of 18 to 20, will certainly, well, there's a high probability that getting out of home will not subscribe to cable. Obviously, they will subscribe to wireless, and, you know, we are there to offer all sorts of good products, whatever it's Videotron brand or Fizz, a digital or a conventional through, you know, call centers, service and products. We're all doing this, but something, again, that is unknown to us is the performance of Bell in Quebec. I guess that if they are not breaking down the numbers, is that basically probably because they do not have good numbers in Quebec.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Pierre-Carl. You just two very quick follow-ups, if I can. On wireless ARPU, as we kind of look at Q4, but probably more importantly 2022, just remind us where we are in terms of kind of where roaming levels sit, and, you know, kind of if there was any impacts in the quarter or Q1 of this year in terms of renewed restrictions in Quebec. And then my second follow-up, just in terms of the government programs and the footprint expansion, when do you expect to begin kind of loading? I think you alluded to a little bit of loading in Q4, but should this be a steady kind of ramp of footprint penetration as you go through 2022?
Drew, so on the ARPU, usage. I think your question, if I understood it correctly, was more specifically related to usage revenues, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So you know what went on the way down is certainly the same on the way up. You'll remember that we had made the comment that compared to some of our competitors and larger peers and competitors, we did not decrease as materially as they did in terms of usage revenues. So now we're obviously not benefiting from that same swing back up. So it really wasn't material for us, and so I can't really argue that it is that it's going to continue to be. So I don't think that's going to play much or have much impact on the ARPU going forward. I think it's in our case, it is continuing to grow ARPU on all of our platforms. And as I said, I mean, Fizz. We had a very, I won't give you the number, but we are continuing, and it's continued to increase. And the increase in ARPU is actually increasing, so that's good news. And so we'll have a little bit less of that impact that we keep talking about on the overall ARPU going forward. Those would be my comments on that. In terms of the government programs, the 37,000 doors or addresses that we will deliver, we've delivered some, but very few, to be honest. And these will come in on stream more gradually over the next 6-9 months. I mean, by the end of September is what we expect that we will have delivered all 37,000.
Okay, and I promise my last one. Just back to the ARPU, the roaming impacts for you. Just remind us kind of where we are on the roaming side. I know it's not a big revenue stream, but.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your question. I'm sorry.
Yeah, just like international roaming, any roaming revenue that you get on wireless.
International roaming we get.
I'm sorry. Okay, for some reason I couldn't hear you very well. I mean, it's some international roaming is back, but as I said, I mean, it's not. It's not a huge percentage of our ARPU, and much lower than our competitors. And so some of it is back, and certainly in Q4 that's helped us a bit, and there's some of it in the 28 cents there, but But again, it's not the main factor.
Super. Thank you.
As a joke, I would say, Drew, that there was a lot of Quebecers that went in Florida during Christmas time, and they all caught COVID. So they stay probably longer. So this is why, roaming revenues went up a little bit.
Thank you.
Now, don't go against everything I've been saying. All right, thanks, Drew.
All right. We just have one last question. It's Jeff Fan from Scotiabank. Please go ahead, Jeff. Jeff, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Most of the questions have been answered, but I do want to clarify on a couple of things. And first is on the cost and the margins for your wireline business. You mentioned Fizz ARPU or Fizz having an impact. I'm interpreting that to be cannibalization, meaning like you're adding Fizz subscribers at a lower ARPU, and perhaps some of these are coming from Videotron stepping down. Am I correct in interpreting that? Is that happening in your base? Didn't seem to be as much of an issue in the past. So I'm just wondering if you can elaborate if that's a cause.
Well, I mean, there's some cannibalization, Jeff. I'm not going to tell you that there's none, but that's not the main factor. Yeah, there is. As we're growing Fizz more faster. Fizz is taking some from Videotron for sure, but I think it's been taking a lot, and we're talking wireline, right? We're talking broadband now, so it's been taking a lot from the TPIAs. I mean, let's be honest, and it's been taking some from some of the other sub brands, So that's where it's performing most. I mean, there is some cannibalization, but as you said yourself, it's no more material today than it was in the previous quarter. It's just my comment was more just mathematically because most of our growth in broadband in the quarter was a result of Fizz new ads as opposed to Videotron at a lower price point. That put pressure on our numbers.
Do you have efforts in place to try to up-tier your service and focus more on the Videotron brand to turn that ARPU trend around?
Well, yeah. I mean, as you know, Jeff, it's not. I mean, we're positioning our two brands very differently, and we are focusing on different segments of the market and different geographies and demographics, of course. With Videotron being on the performing better on the higher end and or the higher price points, and Fizz on the lower price points. But so what I think both Pascal and I have pointed out a number of times. I mean, the market it's a competitive and it's a price-sensitive market that we are living in, and in broadband it is increasingly favoring performance by Fizz. Because that's where that's where we're positioning it, and we're more aggressive to do exactly what you pointed out at the beginning. To lower as much as we can that cannibalization between Videotron and Fizz.
I would say, Ted, that we certainly not invent sub brand. You've been seeing sub brand low cost in the telecom business everywhere in the world, and I guess in other industries also. So that was certainly a missing part of our offering, and this is why we launched it a few years ago. We were expecting a certain amount of cannibalization for sure. What we can say right now is that this portion is certainly much smaller than what we are getting out of the entire market. On the premium side, on Videotron, we've been playing the quadruple play for a long time, as I guess that what Shaw's been doing in the West when they were in a competitive landscape. So again, as what you said, is a different market being addressed differently, where the Fizz brand going in the sub-brands market, and there's few of them. There's, Fido, not on the wireline side, but there's certainly Virgin and many others, TPIAs, where the other sub-brands in the wireless are also numerous.
Right. And then sticking to costs, Helix migration seems like a big number this quarter and a big number for 21. That must have been a big contributor, if I interpret your comments, to the cost because of the platform costs that you have to pay Comcast for that service. I'm also interpreting that those migrations are not necessarily coming with incremental revenue. It's had that big an impact on margins. Am I reading that correctly?
Yes, you are. But yeah, you are. Just before I answer that, though, I just want to make sure that on your previous question, because margin. One thing I didn't say is that the Fizz margin keeps increasing, right? So of course there's some cannibalization, and of course we're not going to. We have 50% of the the broadband market or thereabouts. So of course there'll be some cannibalization on Videotron. But margin as Fizz takes a higher proportion of growth, its margin keeps increasing. So just so that that's very clear. Now moving on to the migration, the Helix migration that you're pointing out, that's exactly what I was saying when I talked about platform and I talked about cost. It is I think it's important to understand it is a somewhat expensive migration for us, especially while that migration is ongoing and before we can take out entirely the cost base that is linked with our more legacy systems and our legacy platforms. In terms of ARPU, Fizz is a different. It's a premium product. I mean, it's got more functionalities. Maybe I'll put it that way. So in many ways, can point to higher ARPU. But at the end of the day, we're living in a competitive market. Where our main competitor is in many areas. Reducing prices and offering its platform at lower prices. So we have to respond and we have to play the game. So and I believe we've been in terms of growth, in terms of net adds, I think we've been playing it rather well, while keeping an eye on that margin that I talked about. So. I mean, it's a bit of a balancing act, and we'll continue to balance these two things going forward.
Thank you. And then just to follow up on with Pierre-Karl too, just two quick ones to finish off. It sounds to me, Pierre-Karl, that you are now more focused on the MVNO path to expanding outside of Quebec for wireless as opposed to acquiring Freedom assets to expand. Am I reading that correctly? Meaning that if you are not successful in acquiring Freedom, that the MVNO is the path to go?
I would say not really, Tim, Jeff.
Yes.
I guess that there are two fronts there. One, we spoke about earlier regarding the Competition Bureau. So we're going to wait until the end of this process, which is facing another process with the CRTC. So I guess both work in the same direction where I guess Canadian needs competition. And one side we have the assets to start, and again depending what will be the tariff that we will face. We have a good idea about tariff. We know what the tariffs are in the U.S. We have also intelligence elsewhere in Europe, because MVNO is not something that started yesterday. It's been there for a very long time everywhere. So we hope that the CRTC will will listen, to our representations because this intelligence is shared with them. So making sure that, if, again, they really believe that they're looking for competition, and this is probably why they decided that they will go with this decision last July, and therefore, let's make sure that all those conditions will be there. So, overall, I would say it's a win-win situation. Both perspectives are favorable to Quebecor.
Great, thank you.
All right, that was the last question we currently had in the queue.
Okay, thank you very much to all, and let's talk together at our next quarter meeting.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes Quebecor Inc.'s financial results for the fourth quarter and full year 2021 conference call. Thank you for your participation and have a nice day.
Thank you for listening to TSX Quarterly. If you enjoyed the cast, remember to leave a good rating. And remember, for any additional inquiries, please consult the company's investor relations section on their website. See you next time.